Okay guys, so as I told you, I would be dissecting the owl pellets. So I have a dry pellet here, but I also have one soaking in water. So we're going to start with the dry pellet. As you can see, I do have gloves on. This did partially pass through the owl's digestive system. I purchased these from a company that finds them, and they bake them in an oven to dry them out, and that kills the bacteria. But again, I'm still going to wear gloves because there are pieces of bones and there's hair, and I don't want to touch that with my hands. So I have 2 sets of tweezers. I also have a small pair of scissors. I'm going to pull this apart. We're going to see what is inside. So on the end, you can see there is a bone here. I'm going to put that there. I put black paper here so we can see a little bit better. I'm going to hold this up closer. You can see that there is hair. This is from one of the small mammals that the barn owl preyed upon. Here are 2 more smaller bones. So with your lesson material, I will be including this bone sorting guide, and it will talk about the different bones that can be found inside of an owl pellet. So again, some of them are very tiny, my friends. They almost look like a twig, but if you remember, I said that owls do not eat plant material. So all of these tiny bones, in fact, came from a small mammal, a small reptile, a small amphibian. And here we have the skull of one of the small rodents. You can see its teeth here. So it was possibly a mouse or a rat, maybe even a small rabbit. Here's another bone. I'm going to be very careful because I don't want to destroy the skull. I would like to try to put this animal back together like a tiny little puzzle. I would also like to show you the skull. You will be able to see the eye sockets. So I'm being very careful. In the Google Classroom for our class, there is the stream setting. It's the very first page that you get to. If any of you have ever had the opportunity to dissect an owl pellet, please leave your comments there. Tell me if you have been able to do that. Tell me what you've been able to find in the owl pellets. Or maybe after this lesson, you might be able to do that with your family. So this little skull is incredibly fragile, my friends, because it is not a skull that is as large as mine or yours. Oops. So I'm not going to pull any more hair from it, but as you can see, we have the skull here. This would be the top of the rodent's head. The eyes would be here. Its brain would be inside of its skull. Its body would have come back this way. And then again, there are the front teeth. And there is the lower jaw, and there is one of the bottom teeth right there. You notice they are very yellowish orange. If you remember, they are wild animals. They cannot brush their teeth. So whatever this rodent was, it ate a lot of plant material to stain its teeth. So I'm going to set the skull there to the side. Part of that rodent's jaw is here, so the bottom part of the skull is here, and there is the other tooth from the bottom. So it would have gone here, side by side, as you can see. So I'm going to set that down. And remember, this is not poop, this is a pellet that it regurgitated, or it spit up from its mouth. The owl did through its beak. So we see a few more small bones here. This was another part of a skull, because I can see a tooth here and another here. Think of how small a mouse is, or a squirrel. They're very tiny, so I don't want to break those bones. So I'm going to look into this pellet. Most of this is hair. So I'm trying to get through it. There are a few bones here on the inside. Here are some of the leg bones for one of the smaller mammals. There's another. These look more like the rib bones or the clavicle, which is there at your shoulder, or this rodent's shoulder, I should say. Because remember, we are mammals as well. We also have bones inside of our body. Our skeleton has a lot of the same bones as these small mammals, but ours are much larger. This one is actually a great example of a clavicle bone. You can see this part here, but actually I might have misspoken. This more than likely is the tibia and the fibula of a mole. So it looks very similar to this. I'm not quite sure. It looks very similar to the fibula of a bird as well. So more than likely it is the fibula of either a bird or one of these rodents, possibly a mole. Very similar. Okay, so mostly what is left here in this pellet are very tiny bones, such as this. This was the dry pellet. Now I'm going to move this material here, and I'm going to start on the wet pellet. The instructions for the pellet dissection said it is easier with a wet pellet, so we're going to try that. We're going to see if it dissects any easier. Now you can see that the water is quite dirty, and that shows you why I did not want to touch this pellet with my bare hands. So already you can see some of the bones. So I think the instructions were right. It is much easier to dissect this pellet when it is wet. So some of you may be curious where Miss Tabitha got these pellets. I ordered them online through Amazon. You can order them through many different websites. I just went with Amazon because it was faster. These pellets were found in Ohio near a barn structure. There's a company that specializes in finding barn owl pellets. I ordered 6 and it came with this sorting guide. So if that is something you would like to do with your family, those resources are available. You can find them online. So I'm going to pull this apart just a little bit. You can see there are a lot of bones here inside of this pellet. There is another part of a skull here. Again, I'm trying to be very careful. The reason I know it's the skull is because I can see the teeth. You can see the teeth here at the front. Now there are some pieces of grass in this. The reason that there are pieces of grass is because the prey animals, the mice, the rabbits, the squirrels, remember they eat vegetative matter. So whatever they ate also went through the owl. So this is a much, much smaller skull compared to this skull that I found. Very similar, teeth at the front, a longer, narrow skull. So they could have possibly both been a type of mouse or rat. So I will put this skull here as well. Here is another skull. It is a little bit harder when I'm wearing gloves, but you can see again another small skull. You can see the teeth at the front. This animal's eyes would have been here. Its brain would have been here, and then its body would have come back, its vertebrae would have connected. Here we have another fibula, so another leg bone. That is where just above your knee, where it will connect to your hip, or for these animals, that's where it would have connected. We have another not quite sure what this one is. Another bone here. Not quite sure what this one would be. It could be part of a skull. It could also be a smaller bird's beak. It's very hard. So I think this might have been a bird's beak, because if you remember, owls do also eat other birds. Sometimes you may find, or your family members may have found, a dead bird in the morning time in the yard. That could be from an owl, could also be from other predators. I found another of those round shapes, so I'm not quite sure what this could be. It could be the part of an animal's beak. It could also be the talons from a bird, from their feet. I'm not quite sure what this one is because it does not match up with anything in our diagrams. Okay. Could be an animal's tooth as well, but I'm not quite sure. So, again, as you can see, all of these bones are perfectly preserved. We have yet another skull here, and you can see the teeth on the jaw. I want to find that. So we know that the rodents have teeth at the front, but they also have teeth at the back of their mouth, just like you do. So I'm going to hold that up and show you. Just there you can see 4 tiny teeth. Just there. So this is one of the smaller rodents, their jaw. And you can see those 4 tiny teeth just there. So I hope you have enjoyed this lesson, my friends. I know this one's a little bit different, but I thought that some of you might enjoy seeing the inside of an owl pellet and learning what an owl eats. Again, if you have ever been able to dissect an owl pellet, please tell me. Let me know. Let me know what you found. I'm going to try to match up some of our bones with the diagram. So we have a femur, as you can see here, femur and femur, possibly of a shrew or of a mouse. We have, oops, I dropped it. We have the clavicle. See here? This will be the clavicle. That is here. So you have rib cage and clavicle. Those are the bones near the shoulder. So we have that. The jaw that I found with the teeth, that is the mandible. And it's almost the same size as the diagram picture. Again, we have the skull. And we have some of the smaller rib bones. I have not found a pelvis. That could be in another. Okay. So that will be wrapping up our lesson on the owl and the bones from the owl pellets. So again, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, my friends, and I will see you next week. Bye, my friends.